no surprises really that came through on the budget front, nothing too dramatic on the table, no changes in policy, no changes in mandates, and no real news about the very strong rand.
Not really, which is symptomatic to the problems of the global economy. There's more risk on the upside in terms of what happens in Greece, Spain, as well as Italy, as well and Portugal. So there's more risk for us, particularly on the export side. So it's good that the government decided to keep everything unchanged, which is very similar and boring because it's under it was Trevor Manuel again presenting the budget.
So you said you found the speech slightly boring. Is that what
very
you're saying?
Much. The only challenge is that, you know, the realities of South Africa, of high unemployment, of huge inequalities, are being postponed because of an inability of the state to afford them. So we hope that, you know, the state in the next 3 years, when the economy recovers, will focus on those issues, because we think that South Africa is very vulnerable in the long term to instability, given those challenges that we all see every time we walk around sub-Saharan cities.
Lumkile, the markets enjoyed what they heard yesterday. Clearly, we did see the JSE all share 1% in the green. We saw the bank stocks enjoying gains. Construction sector also in positive territory. So some response there. But at the end of the day, many say it was a balanced budget, and this is really going to be great for South Africa going forward, because this is what the markets needed right now.
Well, the markets like certainty. So they saw what they've seen before in terms of Trevor Manuel. So they were not, although they were expecting the worst. So confirm that, you know, these policies are much more market friendly. As I said, it's a short-term respite. We need to really look at how we restructure this economy. Hopefully today we'll hear when the Minister Davis announces the initial policy action plan and talks us through as to how this economy will become labor intensive and create those jobs that are critical for long-term sustainability of our democracy.
70 billion rand shortfall at this stage, and clearly we have to go and look into the international markets for some of the funding that we'll require here in South Africa. Are you concerned about the fact that we have to look internationally?
Well, we have no choice, because South Africa has got a very poor savings record, and more importantly is really the state trying very hard to incentivize us to save, and we're not seeing that yet. Hopefully when there's big economic improvement globally, there'll be some changes there. But the reality is that for us to sustain the expanding that and the infrastructure investment, we need to see government borrowing, and in this regard they're borrowing overseas, and hopefully it's a short-term measure and the economy will recover as they expect it to do. But I'm still very skeptical that will recover at the levels that they're talking about for us to have the deficit declining in the next 2 years.
During the medium-term budget speech, the minister surprised us with news about exchange controls, relaxing exchange controls, but no real move on that front, and really just showing no intervention in the very strong rand. Looking at the rand strength at this stage, we saw the rand being quite resilient yesterday, despite the fact that we saw gains coming through on the dollar front. Apart from that, there is risk coming off the table, so emerging market currencies are enjoying gains.
Well, I think what people haven't understood is that there is a policy shift around the rand. The fact that he's talking about leaning against the wind, there is a policy shift. Remember that the governor, Stals, used to lean against the wind. So you can never play against the market. So I'm quite concerned that he's talking about the volatility being offset. And you know, you can get carried away and end up wiping the reserves, which is so under Stals. So we need some clarity around that, what that exactly means. If it means what we're seeing under Tito, where from time to time the bank will come opportunistically, then it's okay. But if it means massive buying of dollars during times of huge inflows, I'm a bit worried, because we may have this thing running against us as market players try to play games against South African Reserve Bank.
But the rand hasn't been that volatile over the last few months, Lumkile. That's the reality, that we have remained below 8 rand to the dollar for some time now, despite the massive moves that we've seen the euro dollar, which was at around 150 in early December, and now we're sitting at around 137.
Because of the problems in the US and Europe, in the US, the challenges around Obama's delivery of the stimulus, and how long he can support it. As we heard this morning that Bernanke is slowly trying to sell some of the securities that he used to support banks, but in Europe, around the euro. So a lot of the stories really, and the strength of the rand, reflects what's happening externally, that people, market players are not so much keen to play because there's so much uncertainty, and hence the rand has held its own, but it's hurt the external sector very, very badly. And until we intervene and do some action around it, we're not going to know how long the export sector will last in South South Africa.
Retail sales for the month of November contracting by 6.6%. The month of December, contraction of 3.7%, came in better than expected. South Africans were out there spending, but clearly we're not in positive territory. In fact, we're quite far from it.
Very much. I mean, it's very encouraging that people really, they love Father Christmas to deliver particularly to the kids, and hence the spending. But I think we're not sustaining that going forward, and therefore we need to see more maybe some form of interest rate cut coming soon, so that to relieve the consumer, because I think the 6.5 billion rand that you've seen from the Minister of Finance is not enough to offset the pressure, given the electricity tariff that's going to go up I think this year, as well as transport costs and the fuel levy cost that the minister announced of about 25 cents, which will help the consumer more. So I think the consumer is not out of the woods yet. So the retail sales will continue showing some slight decline, but it's still going to be under pressure.
Lumkile, we've got numbers coming through from Truworths and Woolies today, and we know these retailers have actually priced in quite a big rebound because they've been rallying over the last few months.
They're a big indicator, but I'm sure they'll be positive, but not as
they're
positive.
They're pricing too much, is that
they're
what you
pricing
think?
too much, yeah, because we know the consumer is highly indebted. And as I said, we're not out of the woods yet. Given the global economy, I will caution that a lot of the CNBC viewers don't run and spend, given the 6.5 billion rand that we'll start seeing coming through, because the future is uncertain.